You call that radio? You call that radio TV? Hello. You call that radio TV?
We are here to tell people that we hear you. One God will not allow us and people of conscience to lose our morale.
You call that radio?
Jacking on my heels, out of sight. Bust off a bar garage. A candle and time and dice. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Good evening and welcome to You Call That Radio. Tonight we have the legendary writer, Mr. Alan Bisset. There, he'll be here in a little minute. We are live on Facebook, we are live on YouTube, we're live on Twitch. If you happen to be on Facebook, just go onto the YouTube channel. It's going to look better, it's going to sound better, and remember to hit that subscribe button. Or go to Twitch. Both Twitch and YouTube are quite a lot better than Facebook. But if you want to stay on Facebook, that's fine. We appreciate you tuning in no matter where you are. Shouts to we are the 45% who I believe are streaming us as well. And shout outs to all our patrons. This is You Call That Radio. We have streamed almost every single night since lockdown began. We've done about 150 odd shows now. We've had some amazing guests, and it would not be possible were it not for the patrons who support this show. So if you enjoy these shows, then, and you can afford a couple of pounds a month, then go to patreon.com/You Call That Radio. Just a wee shout out as well to what's coming up tomorrow. Tomorrow we have the legendary Jim, Maurice and Lefty. Now Jim was given a terminal diagnosis that only had a few months to live. At the age of 73, he decided to record his debut album with Lefty, Dundee musician. Looking forward to that. And then on Thursday, we have a rapper, Young Brido, in the house. He'll be here on Thursday. He's got an amazing new album on the way. And then on Friday, we've got Bonnie Prince Bob of Discontent. So, a busy week ahead, as always, on You Call That Radio. And tonight, we're going to be giving away one of these mugs. Now, you can't buy these, you can only win one of these. And tonight's question is I think, insert blank, that insert blank should retrain as a insert blank. So let's just, to give you an example, so far we've already had, I think that Fatboy Slim should retrain as a Weight Watchers coach. So Stuart Bestie said, I think that Dr. Alban should retrain as a GP. And you get the idea. And someone's going to win a mug tonight. And yeah, let's get Alan on. And welcome to You Call That Radio TV.
You call that radio? You call that radio TV? Hello. You call that radio TV?
This is You Call That Radio.
This is You Call That Radio. And the banner's falling down, I've just noticed, Alan. Alan, can you hear me?
Hello, I can.
Right, I'm just going to act professional in the corner. We're all professionals here, and I'm going to replace the banner.
Yeah.
Just act normal. Just act normal.
I will.
All right, Alan, how are you doing? Is everything okay?
Very well. Aye, these books behind me are also a banner. I realise that every time you see somebody on the telly on Zoom live for their own home, they've got books behind them. So I just got a big sticker, basically, and just pretended that I've got a row of mahogany bookshelves. So that might fall down or off, you know.
Let's see. Does that look all
And
right?
I've got a glass of wine. I'm settling in.
That's good, mate. That's good. I've moved too fast for my camera. I think I'm like a blur. And I want to thank you very much for doing this, man. I was just talking before we went on air that I think the last time I seen you was the Sonic Youth gig at the old hairdressers, which was amazing fun.
It was, aye. I mean, that was the last big night out, really, before it all started to close down. I think that was January. And I was hearing at that time, have you heard of this virus that's sweeping through China? It looks like it's quite
Sounds
dangerous.
like a lot of shite. We're all it sounds like a lot of shite. Probably just like swine flu. Nothing will come here.
And here
That
we
was
are.
the vibe.
But that was a great gig. I mean, Sonic Youth had done a wee tour, Stirling and Edinburgh, and I was on the bill for those. And Glasgow was just off the scale. What an atmosphere there was in that room. It was amazing. I loved it. I'm looking back on it now with nostalgia because it feels like a world that's gone. I shouldn't have talked to myself like this by talking about it.
The before times. That's it. It seems so long ago now, doesn't it? It does seem like another world.
Aye, the pre-COVID world. See, the way that I remember when I was a young football fan, and they would always talk about post-war football. There was pre-war football and post-war football, and essentially, there were different eras. And it now feels like we're talking pre-COVID and post-COVID. Although, I mean, who knows when post-COVID is going to be? We're in a strange in-between period here. It's mental. See, when you stop to think about it, that this is the world that we're now getting used to. It's nothing like the world that we've inhabited for our entire lives, but we've got to make the most of it. So there we are.
Exactly, man. Exactly. And we've got, today we've got a chancellor telling people that artists should just retrain, and then and then the other side we've got a president who may or may not be pretending he's got COVID. Nobody's really sure if he's actually got the virus or he's just doing a publicity stunt.
It feels like we're actually living in some weird sci-fi dystopia. See, if you went back 5 years ago and described to people, Trump's going to be the president of America, Boris Johnson's going to be the prime minister, a pandemic is sweeping the globe and we're not allowed to leave our hussies, and, to basically describe the world we're living in now, folk were thinking you were mad.
It's a bit unrealistic, isn't it? It's a wee bit unrealistic. If it's from a writer's point of view, it'd be a wee bit unrealistic.
If I was to write this as a novel and hand that into my publishers, they'd say, Alan, come on, do you think this is a bit far-fetched? And it is. It is. But, here we are. We've got to go on with it. I'm trying, there's so much to be pessimistic about because basically the world's falling to pieces. America's disintegrating, the economy's nosediving, we've no idea when this is going to go away. And you can succumb to despair. But the one thing that's getting me through it is knowing that everybody's going through it. There's nobody who's not been touched by this. It's affecting some folk more than others, obviously. And like everything else, it's affecting, the poor and working class folk most of all. But at the same time, it's kind of in a funny way making me feel connected to the rest of the human race, even as I've become more disconnected for them. I can't actually have human interaction in the way that I used to, but knowing that everybody else is going through the same thing that I am, in a way, is strangely comforting. Glass half full. Glass half full.
Exactly, man. I think so. It's interesting because I think that you're right. Although, of course, as always, the working class take the brunt of everything, but everybody is, for the first time, being, at the very least, mildly being inconvenienced by the incompetence of the people in charge.
Well, aye, that's true.
As I said, incompetence, my banner fell down again.
And you know what? In a weird philosophical way, it feels like humanity is needed to get slapped about by nature for a bit. And that's what's happening. Nature's going, you think you're in charge, but actually, see these tiny, tiny wee microbes that you can't even see? They're going to fuck up everything for you. And it's good to be reminded that nature's in charge. But that philosophical aspect doesn't help you get through your day. It doesn't help you feel any certainty about the future. So while I'm on board with nature taking charge again, it's still making everything a lot more difficult for us in the here and now.
It's a pain in the arse.
Pretty
simply, I think we can all agree that this is all a pain in the arse.
Aye, that's exactly, it's out of order. And I know that phrase out of order can cover a multitude of sins. You know what I mean? But, like somebody was shouting around the pub, that's out of order. Hitler, out of order. This virus, I think we can all safely describe as out of order.
And with them, there's obviously more people going through a bad time than just the artist, but from an artist point of view, you know, we did We Make Events show that last week, because it just does seem like artists are the forgotten people right now, and artists were already struggling in the age of streaming, and now without live or even a plan as to when live will come back, it's not looking good.
Aye, I mean, the thing is that the pact that you make with yourself when you become a freelance artist, whether it's a musician or a writer or an actor or anything, is that it's an uncertain life. And there's part of me thinks maybe artists shouldn't really be moaning about it too much because, you know, to quote The Godfather 2, this is the life that we have chosen. But at the same time, you know, you can't even do a gig. Theatres are shut. You can't perform to an audience. You know, like if you're an actor, how do you perform in any convincing way in front of a camera when you can't touch another actor or be anywhere near them? You know, so it just makes actually doing the basics of your job impossible.
Well, that's it's supposed to be. Everybody knows it's a risky thing to become an artist. It's risky, but you're supposed to fail because of your own shortcomings, not because you can't do what you're supposed to do.
Aye, pretty much. It's I mean, I couldn't work all summer because the kids were home every day. I've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and they need a lot of attention. You know, you can't just open the door and say, right, out you go. You know, they need day-to-day quality time, or they're going to sort of succumb to the same despair that everybody else is. You know, we basically just decided let's make sure the kids are happy, and if the kids are happy, we'll be able to get through this. But it meant I couldn't work all summer. I've never had a period in my entire life when I wasn't working on a creative project, and for about 4 or 5 months I just stopped. I just completely stopped, and now I'm trying to catch up with everything that I couldn't do over the course of the summer. But I didn't want to moan. There's a lot of people got it a lot worse than me. It's not been easy at all. But there's some people that are, you know, basically succumbing to real serious mental health problems, and I'm not one of them. So every day I'm thankful that things aren't as bad as they could be, you know. So
with regards to that, with the fact that you haven't been writing for as much as that, do you just feel like you've got loads more ideas? Have you been sneaking down some notes of some start of ideas at least?
Just before I answer that, Mark, I'm having a wee look at the chat here, and I'm seeing there's a comment from Alan Bisset enjoying the chat. It's worth pointing out to everybody that is not me. That's actually my dad, who is also called Alan Bisset. Just in case you thought I was leaving a comment saying that I was enjoying my own chat.
I was getting a bit confused, and I was like, how did he do that? Well, I was doing it. I just thought he is an experienced writer, so maybe he can just do a 1-2 buckle my shoe on the keyboard.
I need to be careful what I'm saying now that my dad's listening.
Hello, Alan Senior. How you doing, mate? Thanks for tuning in. In fact, we'll say hello to who else is tuned in. We've got Susie Briggs is tuned in. Hello, Susie. Hello, Celtic. Hello, Alan. You need to stick Ed the fuck up on the wall now. Oh yeah, Ed the fuck. Sorry, Ed the fuck is my mascot, stroke co-host. I flung him the other day. I'll find him. We'll get him back on. The captain says, I think Boris Johnson should retrain as Tyson Fury's sparring partner. That is a good one. You may have won the mug, Captain. But the government has fucked this and everyone monumentally. They should be paying everyone properly to stay at home. Usual Tory pish. Never trust a Tory. Enjoying your in chat. Okay, Junior, says Alan.
All right, Dad.
And quite right, it's no shortcomings that are stopping us working, it's the restrictions and a wide unnecessary social responsibility for controlling the virus. So is it just time for universal basic income?
100%. Absolutely. I mean, otherwise, like, there's going to be a whole layer of society that are just going to sink. Because as soon as the furlough scheme comes to an end, I think which is the end of this month, you're going to see mass layoffs, mass redundancies, unemployment like we've never seen before in this country, and there's only going to be so many jobs to go around. So that whole thing, just retrain for what job? Where are the jobs going to be? There's going to be 3,000 people applying for every job. So
everyone's talking as if there was loads of jobs before. Like, what? Where is the jobs? What are they talking about?
And then at the end of the year, we've got Brexit.
Oh, I'm looking forward to a wee bit of Brexit. Brexit's coming in the rear view mirror. We forgot all about that.
Everything's fucked, basically, right? So now the glass is half empty.
Everything's fucked. But
Everything
on the
is
positive
fucked.
side, we could changes that we could make are simple things like universal basic income. The amount of money wasted on bureaucracy to give out or sometimes not give out benefits is an expensive thing.
Well, the Tories will never allow universal basic income because it's too close to socialism. They're already uncomfortable with what they've been doing with the relief measures over the course of the summer.
But they had to make sure that
universal basic income is an admission that capitalism has failed and that can't deal with this sort of crisis, which it can. So they'll never allow it on ideological grounds.
And
independent Scotland, on the other hand,
independent Scotland
that could allow it. You know,
has there
when they put that out there?
Has there been? Obviously, you were a massive part of the independence campaign with National Collective and stuff like that. Has there anything changed in the last few years that has changed your mind on independence, or has it just strengthened?
No, I've definitely went for yes to no, because obviously when the no vote came in, I was gutted. But everything's worked out fine for the last 5 years. You know, it was all the promises that the no campaign made to us have all been fulfilled. We're all healthy and happy in the union. You know, things couldn't be better. So I think that really does blow the argument for independence out the water. And
it's good that Jim Murphy and Alistair Darling have been here throughout the crisis, making sure we're all right.
Aye, and also all the people that signed the vow, pretty much as soon as the ink was dry, they were out the door. So, yeah, I mean, I find it difficult you have to try and empathise with people that are maybe in a different political tribe to you, because we're all humans, and you shouldn't let ideology get in the way of, you know, building connections with other folk. But I sometimes try and put my head in the mind of somebody who voted no and is still no. Now, I understand people voting no the first time around because maybe it did look scary and uncertain and all these kind of things, right? But to observe what's happened over the last 5 years and go, yep, this is fine. That I didn't get it, I must admit.
Yeah, I think it's tough, but I think it's also tough for people to admit they were wrong.
Well, that is hard, but you know, it shouldn't be that hard, right? I've voted for the Lib Dems. See, when they went into coalition with the Tories, I didn't know they were going to go into a coalition with the Tories, but I've never been a Labour voter, obviously never been a Tory voter. At that point, it seemed sort of unfeasible to vote for the SNP in a Westminster election. Didn't really make sense. So, but you know, ever since I was old enough to vote, I'd voted for the Lib Dems, and I voted for the Lib Dems, and they went into coalition with the Tories, and I thought, well, I fucked that one up, didn't I? But I made sure I never voted for the Lib Dems again. It's all right to admit that you made a mistake. Nobody can read the future. But people, you know, they see it as a source of shame, and, you know, they feel stupid, or somehow folk are going to mock them for it. You know, you learn, you read the facts on the ground as they are, and it's all right to change your mind. I've changed my mind on numerous political issues over the years, and probably will again. It doesn't mean you're a dummy. It means you're actually... You know, it's a mature way to look at things, but I think a lot of folk, they didn't want to put their hands up and admit, I fucked that up, and you know, I'm one of the reasons why Scotland's in the shit now. That's a hard thing, a hard conversation for folk to have with themselves, I suppose.
But at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. You should be able to change your mind based on new information.
I agree.
We've got a few. UBI only lasts so long. Eventually, capitalism will adapt to absorb the available money. I propose we just abolish money, take the power away from these bastards. Well, that's the next stage. But I think right now, I think if you're going to have UBI, that's a very good point, though. You need to have rent caps to stop greedy landlords just upping the price.
Well, that is an issue. Suddenly, maybe, you know, there might be an impact on inflation. So, I mean, it's no a complete silver bullet that's going to solve everything, but it's definitely a start, and it's a start of a conversation that needs to be had, because there's a lot of people out there working all the hours God sends, and they've still got no money, and that just shouldn't be.
And the media tells them that they should be.
Should
The media
be.
tells them to hate the person that's got less than them. For example, refugees or the unemployed.
That's how it works.
They're made to feel like, how come they get something when I'm working all these hours? The thing that annoys me about it, the universal basic income debate, the biggest one I hear all the time is that, but there would be people that would just stay at home and play their Xbox. And that doesn't bother me at all. Like the idea, I don't mind someone in their house playing the Xbox. That doesn't affect me. I'd rather they were doing that than mugging me because they can't afford to pay to feed their children.
Well, it just means that people aren't work slaves. You know, nobody's going to sit at home playing their Xbox 7 days a week, 12 months of the year. That's going to get boring as shit. And at some point, the money's going to run out and they need to work. It just means people's basics are covered. The problem that they do is people can't even cover their basics. They can't cover rent, their bills, food, all these things that basically you need to cover in order to exist in society. People are struggling to do even that. And if they can't do that, what hope have you got? There's no hope. You can't get yourself out of that kind of hole. So something that would have all that covered, and then you work to make your disposable income, really, and it's up to you how much you want to make it on top of that. But you've got to take away the fear for people, because it's not just there's this idea out there that if you're poor, you're lazy, it's your own fault. And society's structured, capitalism is structured to keep poor people poor and rich people rich. It's a mechanism to funnel money up from the bottom towards the top. That's what it is. So you're never going to abolish poverty underneath capitalism. It's an impossibility. It would have happened by now. Living standards, but it can't happen under a capitalist system. I came on here all smiles and jokes. And
What's that meme? I'm not going to talk about politics. 2 sips of wine later, abolish capitalism. No, it's a good point as well, man. And I think very cool. And I'm wearing a Mustn't Grumble t-shirt as well. Shouts to Zenren for that. But yeah, another strange argument I hear is that sometimes you hear from maybe people who have been through a hard time themselves, who have made it, and they like to sort of say, well, it wasn't easy for me, so why should it be easy for other people? And that really annoys me as well. It's like, yeah, okay, well done, you did well, but why do you want to, throw that ladder down below you and make it harder for other people? Why do you want to see other people suffering? And I think that people aren't aware of the living standards. They talk about young people being snowflakes, but there's so much less opportunities for young people than there was for people even out of my generation, coming out of school like 10, 20 years ago as well.
Well, I can remember when I was coming out of school, which would have been 1993, and the chat at that time for the generation above me was, yous have got it a lot harder than we did, because we used to leave school into a guaranteed job for life. So in the 90s, we were told that things were harder for young people. And now I feel, as the 90s generation, that the generation below me have got it even harder than we did. Much harder, because they can't afford a mortgage. There's no way they can get on the property ladder. There's no council housing. There's a dearth of quality jobs out there, even if you've got a university degree. It's not as if you're going to be walking into a quality job. There's no jobs for life. And then you've got the pandemic and Brexit on top of that. They've been robbed. Honestly, I can totally understand young people just wanting to go out and get fucked up, because what else have they got?
And it's zero hour contracts. There's not even a job for life. You're lucky if you get a job for an hour at a time now.
Aye, basically. I mean, fight for your right to party. That's what I would say to the young folk. Maybe didn't do it right now during the pandemic. Or if you're going to party, stay 2 meters apart, and it's there are consequences to that. But ordinarily,
and you've got to have a little bit of sympathy for young people, because if you put yourself back into your 18-year-old to 21-year-old brain, then I think blaming it all on the students, when there was literally a massive campaign for everyone to eat out, to help out.
Exactly.
And it's like, so it's all right for middle class, middle-aged people to enjoy a nice meal at half price.
I think the great divide in our society, because it used to be Obviously, during the referendum, it was, are you yes or are you no? Then it was, are you remain or are you leave? And now it's, are you abiding by the COVID restrictions or are you not giving a fuck? And there's a huge difference between those two people. And each of them was looking at the others with sort of mutual suspicion. There's a lot of people out there that didn't even believe it's real. You know, I've been alarmed by people who tell me that they think this is all a load of shite and it's all just designed to keep us under control. You know, initially, didn't get me wrong, I wouldn't put it past them, but I didn't think that's what it is. And the reason I didn't think that's what it is because all the protests against lockdown and all the people that are saying that COVID is exaggerated are on the right of the political spectrum. So there's your first clue. And also, you're not going to get every capitalist government in the world deciding to crash their economy. I'm not buying it.
Well, people are actually dying of it. It is definitely a real disease, but there's obviously arguments about whether it's been exaggerated, about whether there is a way that we could maybe deal with it differently and try and live within the virus and keep things ticking over. So there's lots, but it seems to be very polarised. It's like you either have to, you know, believe that it's a hoax, that the mask is some symbolic thing to keep you under control, which doesn't really make sense to me because surely the mask, wearing a mask before this was actually, you know, we've got surveillance cameras everywhere. Surely the mask is a bad thing for an authoritarian government.
Aye, it doesn't stack up. It's just, I mean, to be quite honest, I don't know what to make it of. I'm going by the rules. I'm trying to abide by the rules as much as I can, and that obviously is an inconvenience. But I didn't really want it on my conscience that somebody could catch it and die because I just decided to not give a fuck. You know, obviously you can't abide by the letter of the law every single minute of every single day. I've not got a tape measure out and checking to see if somebody's 2 meters away from me, but I'm also not just wantonly, you know, opening up my garden for a massive rave. Much as I would love to do that, to be quite honest.
I would love a rave as well, man. I was talking to someone about this earlier on the day as well. They were like, why aren't we just doing lots of raves? And as someone who puts on events and music events for many, many years, it's about the safety of the people coming. We all want to have a good time, maybe even a wild time at times, but you've got to put not only your punters' safety is paramount, but also it might be young people who are healthy and have a good time, but what if they go away and then they get one of their family members? Or how do you sort of live with that? And the way that I've been as well, and I'm very, very sceptical of what I read in the mainstream, but that doesn't mean that I'm suddenly going to just believe a random guy on YouTube either. And I just think that in general, a couple of months ago, I made peace with the fact that I don't know what's going on, have no idea what's going on. So I'm just going to wait till I've got maybe by March I'll have a year worth of stuff to kind of look at and pretend I know what's going on. But right now I don't know. So
well, we're all pretending we know what's going on. Suddenly you've got people who are armchair virologists and, folk in the pub who are suddenly get science degrees coming out their ears and talk with great authority about matters that they didn't know the first thing about. I'm freely admit I don't know the first thing about any of this. And I'm going by what the scientists and the government are telling me. And that does require a degree of trust. But it also neatly segues to Alan Bisset's house party to try and bring the tone up a wee bit and talking about missing parties and missing raves and missing the chance to have a dance. I have found a solution, Mark. And you know what that solution is.
I know what that solution is. I'm going to bring it up on the screen so that people can have a wee look at it. So I'll put it in the comments here. The Alan Bisset house party.
Aye.
So
basically,
you tell us a little bit about it, and I'll bring it on the screen.
I will do. So before the pandemic happened, I was running club nights in the local village hall mainly for parents, folk who used to like going out dancing when they were young but can't because they've got weddings and it's a hassle going into Glasgow and getting a taxi back, and you didn't want to be going to a club and surrounded by 20-year-olds. You want to be with folk your own age, essentially, dancing to music that you know. So I was like, well, why don't we just put that on here? So there was all these folk in their 30s and 40s turned up, having a great time. They can walk home. If there's a problem with the babysitter and the wains, they can go back, deal with it and come back out. Folk were having a great time. It was called Everybody's Free, as in everybody's free to feel good. So I decided when the pandemic happened, why don't I just try and shift it onto Zoom, play the same sort of music that I was playing before, encourage everybody to get some disco lights, maybe get dressed up a wee bit, and just have a wee dance about your own living room, and we all do it. So there's maybe like 50 or 60 squares up on Zoom with folk with disco lights out all having a wee dance. And there's no chat, well, you can chat in the chat facility, but I didn't unmute everybody when we all talk, because everybody's strangers. I just play really good music that everybody knows and that they remember for their youth. So it's mainly stuff for the 80s, the 90s, maybe the early 90s. Big hits, upbeat, positive music. And for 4 hours, everybody just fucking dances. And the feeling that you get for a club, which is a connection with everybody around you through the music, obviously it's not quite the same, but you can get something like that because everybody's enjoying the same music and you can see them enjoying it. It's a great night. Obviously, like a normal club, you get out what you put in. If you just sit there staring at the screen like a lump, you're probably not going to enjoy yourself. But even just bottom about in your own chair, you're going to feel something. So if anybody wants to come along, you're very welcome. That's my Facebook events page for it. That's me when I was a wee bit younger and thinner.
What, February?
But the Zoom link is on that page. So this Friday at 9 o'clock, it goes from 9 o'clock to 1 a.m. Just pop in. Folk can leave a PayPal donation for me if they want. They don't have to. It's no compulsory. So if you pop in and you're not enjoying it, you can pop back out again. Or you can stay for 4 hours. It's entirely up to you. But you'd like it. You think you're not going to like it because you think this is going to be super awkward. And I can feel for the first 2 or 3 songs, folk going, how's this going to go? And then eventually the music just takes them because the playlist is amazing. And off they go.
I'll be there, mate. I'll be there.
Great. You'll enjoy it.
There's literally nothing else for me to do. Everything's shut. And also, Alan, as well, is that the pub, there's no background music in the pub.
It's a shame because pubs haven't got the atmosphere that they did. And I love the pubs in the village where I live. And I really miss going to them because I live in a quite a small community. And you go into the pubs and you know everybody there and the banter's brilliant. And, you know, I'm really missing that. And you can still go, but you can't go with a bunch of folk. You can't go around talking to everybody else in the pub. There's no music playing in the background. You've got to be out by 10 p.m. and it's not the pub's fault. They're trying their best. But with the best will in the world, you know, it's harder for them and it's harder to get that feeling that we once had. But I'm still going because I'm trying to support the pubs. My greatest fear is that the pubs didn't open back up again. So yeah. I want to keep that because Sunny World is shut again. That's a worry. Sunny World is shut. Well, it's not. I don't think it's shut forever, but it's saying we're going to ride this route. They tried opening back up because I love going to the pictures, and they tried opening back up, and it's not happening for them because nobody wants to go to the pictures. So I'm a wee bit worried.
I stopped going to Sunny World after I had a Sunny World. You know, those unlimited cards. I had one of them, but I cancelled it after going to see Robert De Niro's Dirty Grandpa film.
Well, I take it you didn't like it.
I didn't like it, man. I didn't like it. No.
That's not really Sunny World's fault.
I know. It's petty. It's petty. There was a few things, but that was just the final straw. That was a straw. That was that, and also I think at the time the Tarantino film was supposed to be coming out in Sunny World, and then it didn't come out, and I just was just like, nah. It's a really bad film, man. I think you need to watch the film.
The Tarantino film wasn't playing in Sunny World.
Well, they didn't put the Tarantino film on for some reason. It was they advertised it, but then they didn't do it. But I don't want to get the Tarantino thing. I want to go back to Robert De Niro's Dirty Grandpa.
Thing, mate. I'd be very. I could stay in that hole for quite a long time, mate.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll
go back to that then. De Niro's Dirty Grandpa. I don't know if you've ever seen it, man, but it's such a bad film that it doesn't make any sense because you're like, well, Robert De Niro, he doesn't need the money. He must have read the script. Why did he do that? Why? Was he blackmailed? Why did that happen?
I mean, I read an interview with him because I share your frustration because De Niro is one of my favourite actors. And I read an interview with him and the guy was saying to him, you've done all these iconic roles, Travis Bickle and Jake LaMotta and, you know, Jimmy Conway and, you know, you're known as a great method actor and gets, you know, super into the part. Why are you doing these shit comedies? And he said, well, after 30 years, like, you know, travelling into the darkness with these folk, I just got tired of it. And now I just want to go to my work and have fun. And I'm like, fair play. You know, when you've got De Niro's track record behind you, maybe he's earned it. But at the same time, I didn't want to watch Dirty Grandpa.
It's really bad. It's really bad.
It sounds shit.
But to be fair, he can do what he wants. You know what I mean? Do what you want. You don't need to listen to me. Just do what you want. My permission, didn't you know? Um,
I'll pass
Alan
it
went,
on to him.
pass it on, let him know, man, it's cool. I forgive him.
Right.
So Alan says, I went to Cineworld today to see Tenet. I loved it, and it was great to see it on the big screen before the cinema shuts again. And my understanding is that you've got to wear the mask in the film, and is that maybe the reason that and I understand there's a couple of big name films that have been now postponed till next year.
Well, Tenet was a big test case because obviously Christopher Nolan's a big blockbuster director and all his films make a fortune. They released Tenet to see what would happen, and it's been a bit of a flop. Now, obviously, it's been a flop because nobody's gone to the pictures, but they're realising that releasing big, tentpole summer blockbusters isn't working, and that they're not going to get their money back. So the Black Widow film was meant to come out, and they're sitting on that. The Wonder Woman film was meant to come out, and they're sitting on that. We might actually be looking at the era of the big Hollywood franchise being over, because I don't know about you, but I have discovered so many wonderful, amazing, low-budget, original, quirky, unique films in lockdown on Netflix and Amazon and all this. Films that I might never have seen otherwise. And I don't know if I've got the taste for the big franchises again. I love the Marvel movies. But, I don't know if I'm up for going to see Black Widow when you can watch something that's made by a really hot and hungry young director for next to nothing that blows your mind.
I think
In your living room.
I think that's maybe a point that maybe Cineworld should maybe look at again, because I think that the Hollywood blockbusters didn't appeal to my taste, and very rarely does a Hollywood blockbuster come through that I can actually enjoy. And I mean, but going back to films that you've enjoyed this lockdown, is there anything that you'd recommend that maybe we wouldn't have heard of?
Oh my God, right. Didn't even get me started. So what happened was on a Monday night, me and my best mate through in Falkirk, Thomas, we pick a movie, we phone each other up, we do 3, 2, 1, we press play at exactly the same time, we text each other during it. There's probably simpler ways of doing it where you can share a screen, but we don't know what they are yet. And we've pretty much settled into a groove of really quality horror movies. So, Hereditary, Midsummer, The Invitation, Invisible Man, The Witch, what was the one we watched last night? Unsane. I could go on, I could just type a list of you. Really, I used to love horror movies when I was young, right? And then I grew up and thought, I don't know if I'm into this anymore, especially because they started getting shite. It was all like Hostel and torture porn and Saw, and I didn't like the movies. And the genre has completely been revolutionised in the last few years. The Babadook and It Follows, and really original quality writing, character depth, and amazing acting, and just so many ideas are fizzing away in that genre now. So I'll tell you what, the one to start these off, right? Go to Netflix. It's called The Invitation. It's fucking brilliant. It must have cost them next to nothing to make. Absolutely brilliant. So that's where it's at now. Horror movies.
It's horror movies all the way. And is it? You've been watching any TV shows as well, or has it just been?
We watched Succession. Because like everybody else, we were sort of mourning the end of Game of Thrones, especially because Game of Thrones had such a shit ending, and you all that for that, and you're like, what the fuck?
Well, what's the first episode, The Succession, and it was okay. It was obviously I wouldn't judge a TV show based on its first episode, because especially it's the same in the comedy genre as well. You can't, there's just introducing characters. So I've started that one. So it's worth sticking with.
Definitely worth sticking with. Brian Cox is, especially by the time you get to the second series, and he's like sort of Don Corleone and Rupert Murdoch and Donald Trump all in one body, and just the seething family drama, but also overlaid with this sort of uber capitalist backdrop. I realise you can't overlay something with a backdrop. That's a completely mixed metaphor there for a writer. That's shocking. But it also shows you how things work at the top level, among the rich. And I sometimes, like folk were like that to me, oh, watch The Crown. The Crown's amazing. But I couldn't get over the fact that you're essentially being asked to empathise with the people that rule us. I'm just a bit like, fuck you. I didn't really care about these people because I am literally their subject. So why should I emotionally invest in them? And it's kind of the same with this a wee bit to a certain extent, but it's just so well done. And also He's still Scottish. Brian Cox has still got a Scottish accent. And in series 2, they go back to Dundee, where obviously Brian Cox grew up, but the character he's playing has been given a similar backstory. So Scotland comes into play quite a bit as well. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Amazing stuff, man. I'll be checking that out. You had a wee mention for Falkirk there, your pal for Falkirk, and are you? How long? Because I was wanting to ask you about the idea of being a writer from out with a major city. Was there any? I would imagine there was definitely disadvantages, but was there any advantages for yourself?
Well, what I realised when I was a young writer, when I did read Scottish fiction, because it was Trainspotting that opened that door for me. Up until that point, I didn't read any Scottish fiction because I was like, why the fuck does anybody want to read about Scotland? But then you see a novel like Trainspotting, and you're like, holy shit, and that just opens so many doors. But Trainspotting's set in Edinburgh. There's all these novels set in Glasgow. There's also a Highland literature, I was aware of that, and it seemed like somewhere like Falkirk didn't exist culturally, and that towns like Falkirk, so your Dunfermlines and your Paisleys and your Arbroaths, that these places are very, very rarely represented culturally, and certainly not in novels. So I felt that when I was writing my first novel, Boy Racers, which is set in Falkirk, I didn't see anybody else doing that. And it's not that there weren't influences, because obviously I was taking influences for, your Kelmans and your Irving Welshes and your Duncan MacLeans and Alan Warners and folk like that. But I didn't see anybody writing about sort of post-industrial towns. There weren't a lot of novels set in towns. So that was definitely something I noticed at the time, which is maybe one of the reasons why Boy Racers at the time stood out.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Just to go into the Trainspotting, I think I was the same as well. The idea of just reading things in a Scottish accent, it blew my mind, and it just was. It was as someone who was just wasn't really paying attention at school, wasn't really taking school seriously. Just seeing something in a Scottish accent was really inspiring to me.
It was a total revolution. I mean, see the generation before me, right? Because I used to hear folk talk about punk, and I never really, I was too young for it, obviously, but I never really liked punk music because I just thought it was so ugly and discordant and basic. And I was into Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and Tubular Bells and stuff that, was ambitious and grand and creative, and I never saw punk in that way. But what I didn't understand about punk until I read Trainspotting was it wasn't really about the music. It was about the energy. It was about the attitude. It was about the cultural aggression. And so when I read Trainspotting, that was my punk. I was like, fucking yes. Suddenly everything that I'd read before Trainspotting seemed stale. And this thing just erupted in front of me, as it did for almost everybody of my age all over the UK. Via the film. But after I read Trainspotting, I wanted to be a completely different kind of writer. I was like, well, I can do that. If you can do that, I can do that. And it was empowering. It was the influence of example. So I think there was a whole generation of writers that came after Trainspotting that only exist because of Trainspotting. And I'm one of them, I would say.
I'm sure that you inspired.
And then I met Irvin, and he was cool as fuck. They say never meet your heroes. He was a dude. He was the sort of guy you can go on a night out with and have a fucking brilliant laugh with. No pretensions whatsoever. So that was also a happy ending to that. Sorry, mate, I cut you off there.
No, not at all, man. No, it's good. And it's always good. We do like on this show to have the name drop. I'm actually in the middle of making the name drop, just in case anyone does. I love hearing that, man. It's great to hear it. It's like, at one point, because this was an audio podcast before it was this format, and one of the names that I did toy with was Never Mind Your Heroes. That'd be a controversial name, but Never Meet Your Heroes, because I've been lucky as well. I've been lucky enough to meet a few people that I really greatly admired, and they always seem sound as well. I think maybe it depends on who your heroes are, I suppose.
Aye, that's true. If your hero's an asshole, they're probably going to be an asshole in your life.
If your hero's Boris Johnson, don't be surprised when he pumps your wife or something. You know what I mean? We're going to go through some comments quickly, and then I think we're going to play a wee song. So Alan's really enjoying this tonight.
Oh, thank you, Alan.
Celtics have been put off the cinema for years now because it's all rubbish, big budget comic films. I'm scunnered with them. Hopefully they'll make cinema interesting again. Well, we've got to give a shout out to people like the GFT, and there is other people out there trying to do things a little bit different and encouraging independent film. Also, I was at the Short Film Festival last year, and that made me realise that there's so much amazing stuff that I'm missing out on because it doesn't get the publicity that it deserves. But with James Price on, man, he's an amazing working class director who has made some incredible short films, Spiral and Dropping Off Michael, and I'd 100% recommend him as well.
Cool.
Tallest cinema in the world. There is a Guinness plaque on the wall.
I mean, I don't know where the tallest cinema in the world is, or what the connection is with the Guinness plaque.
Maybe they got the Guinness. I would assume they got the Guinness plaque, but I don't know. Is that Glasgow? Dude, let us know. Let us know.
I don't know. Maybe this is a riddle.
Maybe it's a riddle. Peter, I do door and window repairs. I'd be happy to explain the workings and mechanisms of the modern systems to anyone who's ready and willing to listen to learn. Is this a reference to the Overton window?
I have no idea what Peter is talking about here.
Maybe Peter's just trying to,
advertise his business.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I'm all for a bit of spam. That's fine.
Why no? Peter, if I need any help with my windows, I will come to you. Peter
will sort you, guys. But it looks like, Susie and Danny, it looks like you've got some new dancers. They will definitely be dancing. We actually did a wee thing called Tune O'Clock on Saturday night, man. I had a couple of drinks and I just played some tunes, and it was good fun to do as well. And 0 hours contract should be stopped tomorrow. The rich are getting richer. Normal people are living from week to week. Fact. And if wearing a mask can stop an airborne virus, how come you can smell a fart while wearing a mask?
It's a good question.
It's a good question. I don't have the answer to, because like we said, we don't actually know what's going on. We're not virologists. I think I'm going to play a song now. I think it was the first time I'd ever heard of you, Alan, and I know that I've got family members that are big. They had heard of you. I think this was a good few years after Boy Racist had came out. But it was as a massive Arab Strap fan, and the fact that they're also from Falkirk, it was only a matter of time, and I suppose that's another never meet your heroes kind of moments.
Aye, well, I mean, the thing about Arab Strap is I can remember them from school. Well, actually, Malcolm was at a different school, but Aidan was in the year above me at school, and he was quite distinctive because he was in the sort of, I suppose at that time it would have been a goth kind of mosher thing, and that crowd stood out. And obviously they went on to form Arab Strap, and I was like, fuck, that's that guy for school. But also, if you look at Jim Monaghan's comment here, Alan, did you buy all those shite records that you liked at Sleeves Records in Falkirk? I can imagine a grumpy Aidan Moffat behind the jump, rolling his eyes at your choice. Aidan Moffat worked in an independent record shop in Falkirk called Sleeves, and I did used to buy some records there, and I've got a very specific memory of buying Rock Sets Look Sharp from Aidan Moffat, and he fucking did roll his eyes. So you're on it, Jim. Aye, absolutely. So then Arab Strap went on and became Arab Strap, and years later I met them at a gig in New York, of all places. I went backstage and I was like, again, I don't know if you remember me, guys. And they're like, oh, and you come. I think they'd read my book because it came from Falkirk. They'd come from Falkirk and I'd come from Falkirk, so you become aware of each other. And then a couple of years after that, me and Malcolm collaborated on a song, and I'm still very proud of that song, actually. I'm glad you're playing it.
It's a brilliant tune, mate, and I haven't heard it for years, but I remember when it came out, loving it, and then I've been listening to it a couple of times this week, and it is an absolute classic. And it was part of like a compilation CD, is that right?
It was called Ballads of the Book. It was a project. Roddy Wimble of Idlewild set it up, and it was Scottish writers and Scottish musicians collaborating on songs. So the writers wrote the lyrics, the musicians wrote the music, and there we are.
This is a belter. Enjoy Malcolm Middleton, Alan Bisset, Rebel Origin tonight, featuring some graphics from Bebo TV. To give you an idea of when this came out.
taxi queue, they kick the shit out you. All that you stood for was all that they hoped for. Smashed in the backseat, you tried to hold on to that, but there's a pain waiting back in your council flat. Rebels on its own tonight. The rebels all alone tonight. On the classroom page you scribbled all your rage. Synth-baric chord change, Tyrone Mackenzie's name. Nights in the manic, keep dancing to Britney. Wishing your hometown wasn't so shit. The rebels on its own tonight. The rebels all alone tonight. Dreaming you are Stephen King, you are steaming, you are watching the work on my Marx and Engels and Kathiakar. Hide your face inside your parka. The rebels on its own tonight. The rebels all alone tonight.
Pure as vodka, pure as snow. She kisses like it's a terrorist act. Everything's about ghosts, you know. She said and dressed and packed. Is it just me or is it cold in here? Is it just me or is this place totally dead? Buddhism, communism, post-postmodernism, you swallow them like sleeping pills. And still you take them, still awake. There's cats, they're scratching at your windowsill. Can I get a witness? Yeah! I said, can I get someone to escort me back to my flat? So you've got a police record now, have you? What is it like, walking on the moon? An old joke, aye, my dad used to tell it when he was knocking me about the fucking room. Do you take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? And do you take this lawyer to separate you for life? 32 and where are you now? Still hammering it, still hanging on till the end. But every time you go out clubbing, you take a drubbing from somebody's fucking boyfriend.
You call that radio?
Watching
Here to tell people that we hear you. One God will not allow.
You call that radio.
However you want to say it.
You call that radio.
However you want to say it, that's kind of part of the fun.
Powered by our patrons.
Brothers and sisters.
We are indeed powered by our Patreon, so shout outs to everyone who does support the show, whether that's on Patreon or on Twitch. If you want, we're building a thing, and because there's no live events, this is all I can do until I retrain as a plumber. So it's patreon.com/you call that radio or paypal.me/you call that radio if you want to support the show. We're live tonight with Alan Bisset, and we just watched an absolute classic of a tune, mate, and it just like it does. I don't know what year that was, but it brings back hazy memories of. I think I was listening to it on my way. It was. I don't know if it came out at the same time, but I remember going to a Malcolm Middleton gig at Oranmore, maybe round about that time. Does that sound about right?
It was 2005.
2005.
That would have been about right, aye.
Yeah.
I had an album out at that time, I think, called Into the Woods.
Yeah.
It's good to see that video again, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know who that wee guy is in the video. I've never found out, but I would love to find out because, I mean, he looks like he's
Do you
on
think he knows? Do you think he knows he's on a video?
I don't think so. What happened was the song had been out for a while and somebody made a video for it. Just some random on YouTube made a video for it, wasn't it? It was nothing to do with either me or Malcolm or the record company at all. It was just some guy decided to do it, and I'm glad he did because there it is. And I think it's perfect. I think that video is absolutely perfect for it.
Yeah, it's amazing, man. And Arab Strap, they were another one. Probably when you talk about things like reading Train Spotting, and also I remember getting an NME compilation CD, and there was Arab Strap. This was before internet. Well, the internet existed, but the internet didn't exist in the way that we know it now, and I certainly had no interest in internet. But there was a Arab Strap CD, and I think it was, I don't know, the song was called something like I Didn't Shag Him, he slept on the couch in the kitchen. I can't remember, something like that. And it was just Aidan speaking in a Falkirk accent, and it just blew my mind. And I was like, right, okay, you can just do that. And I think things like Train Spotting, things like Arab Strap, just been so fiercely not compromising their accent or how they talk, probably to the detriment of their careers at certain points. But to me, it just made me go, right, okay. And obviously, ever since whenever I got involved in writing or performing, I never tried to change who it was I was.
Well, I think that's right. I mean, the reason Arab Strap are still talked about to this day is because they didn't compromise. And they could have had a big, successful commercial career, I'm sure. They're talented enough, but they wouldn't have been the band that we know and love now. I think they're probably the most important Scottish band of the last 30 years. I really do. They're totally original, totally unique. There's nobody else even remotely like them. And they were not afraid to just be who they are. You know, we're a couple of guys from Falkirk. We're going to write about being for somewhere like Falkirk and, just the things that surround us every day in the voice that we grew up talking. That's very, very powerful. You know, I seen
them play their comeback gig at the Barras. I think it was that last year or the year before. It's hard to get a time frame of things now since all the COVID stuff in it. But they played the Barras, and it was just what an incredible gig, sold out. And the first big night of the summer came on, there was balloons everywhere, and it was just like a magical moment because I don't think they had played a gig for a good. They didn't just play random gigs for no reason, so it felt great. Also, I remember they took a bit of stick for. I think a journalist asked them about what was the music scene in Falkirk like, and I think the same thing happened to Biffy Clyro when they said I'm from Ayrshire, so when they asked Biffy Clyro, what's the scene like in Ayrshire? And they give a similar answer, that there was no scene. And that seemed to upset locals, but it's just the truth. It
was absolutely the truth, and I can confirm that because I was there. The idea that you would go out in Falkirk and see a band, it just didn't happen at that time in the early 90s. Folk were clubbing. And if you wanted to see a band, you went to Glasgow. I mean, I saw Arab Strap in Brooklyn, right? And this would have been maybe 2003, 2004. And the place was absolutely heaving, full of Brooklyn hipsters, you know, folk right into the music, folk who knew every single song. And I couldn't believe it. Here's two guys for Falkirk, you know, filling this place in Brooklyn, a very well-known venue in Brooklyn. And in Falkirk, if they were to play a gig in Falkirk, they'd be absolutely fucking naked there. And that is the irony. Like, if they were to play a gig in Falkirk, nobody would be interested. But it's not really the reason why fucking Falkirk go out. Fucking Falkirk go out to dance. They didn't go out to listen to bands, really. I think even probably to this day, that's true.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic band. And yeah, they've got a new single out as well. So I don't know if they're working on an album, but they dropped a new single a week or two ago.
Right, that's great. I had heard that they were back. I've not heard the single yet, but I'll go away and listen to it this evening. Yeah. After this, I've got to go through it and do the dishes, so I'll stick that on in the background.
Do that in the dishes. Listen to nothing more grounding than listening to some Falkirk music while you do the dishes.
Remind me of home.
Remind the good old days. David McGowran, I saw 10cc at Big in Falkirk, summer of 2005.
Aye, that did come further down the line. They started doing a festival big in Falkirk, and they could attract names to that one big event, and everybody used to go. I was more talking about the week.
But once again, a big event like that, there'd be people travelling from places out with Falkirk to go to that as well, wouldn't there?
Aye, of course. And you're always going to get your youth to go out to a big festival in Calendar Park. But I was more talking about like, your weekly scene.
Yeah, no, I know.
That said, I don't know if my dad is still here, right? But I remember growing up, my dad saying to me, "Son, I saw the Jam in the Maniquee. I saw Elvis Costello in the Maniquee, right? The Maniquee being a local nightclub in Falkirk. Apparently, like in the late 70s and early 80s, you could see, obviously Elvis Costello and the Jam weren't massive at that time. They were still doing the fact that they were playing the Maniquee in Falkirk maybe shows what stage of their career they were at. But nonetheless, there must have been a live music scene in Falkirk. You know, maybe it wasn't the culture that folk would go and see big gigs through in Glasgow at that time. So if my dad is on the chat, you know, come in and verify that for his dad. He's maybe fucked off now.
He's maybe fucked off. Lindsay Stewart says, I'd be there if they played Falkirk. Let Aidan and Malcolm know that they've sold one ticket to this imaginary Arab strap in Falkirk gig. The name Jim Monins, as always, the fact checker of this show. Ballad in the Book was a cracking album. Time for a volume 2.
I agree. I think there should be a volume 2. It was a great album. I mean, some of the names that were involved, you had on that album, Ballads in the Book, you had folk like Ian Rankin, Alistair Gray, Louise Welsh. You had who else? Who was on it for the music side? Karine Polwart, Alistair Roberts. You had all sorts of folk. It was brilliant. Honestly, go into Spotify and try and find Ballads of the Book. An absolutely brilliant album. Every song's a cracker.
And I just want to ask you as well about the poetry scene, because obviously that gig that I seen you do was with Sonic Youth. So I know Kat and Kev, they do a great job. How involved in the sort of spoken word scene do you try and get out to gigs? Do you keep an eye on it? Is there anyone that you'd recommend for people to check out?
Well, I'm not really involved in the scene at all, to be quite honest with you, for a few reasons. One is I've been around quite a long time. I mean, I was first breaking onto the scene around about 2000, 2001, when I was a very young man, and the scene was very different then. It was sort of pre-spoken word. That wasn't a thing. And I suppose I was quite knowledgeable about who everybody was for quite a long time after that. But basically since I moved out to the countryside, I live in rural Renfrewshire now. And since I had kids and since I turned 40, you know, that is now a distant mirage in the horizon. But every so often you hear of people, or you maybe catch some of their set, or you know, during the Fringe, you pop in and see somebody in a recommendation. And I think there's some very good writers out there. Imogen Sterling, I think, is one. I think she's brilliant. Obviously, Kevin and Gilday and Kat Hepburn that do Sonic Youth, they're great. Jenny Lindsay, I think, is a very good poet in Scotland, who's been around for a while and is getting recognition now. So that's probably enough for people to be going on with. But I've absolutely no doubt there's probably always going to be people coming through at the grassroots. It sustains itself. That might change given current circumstances. But I'm fairly certain the grassroots is very. Iona Lee, I think you've had Iona Lee on here.
Yeah, Iona's been on the show.
Aye, she's brilliant.
We've had Jenny on the show as well before.
Right, aye, Imogen's worth getting on, I would definitely say. She's doing great stuff just now. So, aye, the writers are out there for sure.
Absolutely, man. And I would maybe add to that Victoria McNulty, who's
Yes.
just did a set on, because we did a live show at Capture Works, so we had 2 stages and we did a live stream. So one was a main band stage and one was a smaller stage for the poets. And we're hopeful that we're going to be announcing the lineup for the next one on October the 31st. Stick with me. I'll find out in the next day or 2 if it's happening. But we've got most of the acts lined up.
Here's another one. He's brilliant.
Who, sorry?
Chris McQueer.
Chris McQueer, he's amazing, man. I've actually, I did ask him on the show, and I got a dingy. Well, I don't know if he's seen the message. I know he's a busy boy these days, but I would love to get Chris on the show.
He's amazing.
He's been doing some amazing. It's like, it was quite. I think I seen him at Sam Small's night. Sam Small did that. He does great stuff as well. And I just laughed from start to finish, man. The stories that he tells.
Well, Sam Small is publishing my next book. Sam Small runs Speculative Books.
Yep.
Who published the scripts to my plays, the Moira monologues, last year. And when we were talking about that, he said, "Do you want to do a novella for us?" And I've no published a novel for 10 years, and I would love to write another novel, to be honest, but it takes so long, and I can't really do it just now. But a novella, a wee short novel, so I could do that. So
what makes it a novella and what makes it a novel?
Basically word count. A novella is just a short novel, a very short novel.
Is there an international agreed on word count?
Well, I did ask them that, and they said anything between 14,000 words and I think something like 30,000 words. Now that maybe doesn't mean anything to folk who know a writer. Writers don't talk in page length. It's 500 pages. Writers always talk in word counts. The thing about novellas, they're longer than a short story, but shorter than a novel. And a lot of big name publishers will not touch them because they're very hard to market. Publishers want a novel. They want to market thickness. They want people to pick it up at a train station and feel a bit of weight in their hand. So not many people publish novellas these days. So they said, well, we'll publish one. And I thought, well, that would be really good to get me back into the way of writing prose again, because I've really missed it. So I've got one coming out with Speculative Books this Christmas, if I can meet the deadline. It's called Lazy Susan, and it's set on the sort of, it's about this girl, Susan, who's sort of on the party scene, drugs and party scene in Scotland. And it's structured like do you remember the Choose Your Own Adventure books? When you were young, you can, if you want to fight the big dragon, turn to page 20, and if you want to, pick up the magic staff.
I love that stuff. It was amazing.
Totally. And I've always thought, why does somebody not do that for grown-ups? It seems, somebody maybe has, but I've never heard it. It seems like a really missed opportunity. So I've structured it like that. So you're following this girl in the party scene, and she can go that way, and she has all these different adventures depending on what you choose for her. So there's no structure like a conventional novel. So because it's a novella and it's with a small publisher and it's getting a sort of limited release, I thought I can just be as experimental and free as I like. I'm really, really enjoying writing it. So keep your eye out for that around about Christmas time.
Brilliant. And and in general right now, you can just go to speculativebooks.net, I believe it is.
Yep.
And as far as I'm aware, they've still got they did have up until a couple of months ago, it was you pay a monthly subscription charge and you get a free book every month. It might be a book of poetry, or it might be a novella or something like that.
Right.
But
my novella will be one of the books that you'll get free.
Well, that's amazing. Well, subscribe just now, because everything else that's been on Speculative Books is always good quality. Sam's got a good eye and a good ear for stuff like that. So that's amazing, man. So has that been quite good to sort of something to think about? So you've not been able to work the way you used to work, but you can still have those quiet moments when you're doing the dishes, listening to Arab Strap, where you can maybe think of ideas for the novella.
It's all ticking over there. Because I had a whole summer which was fallow, creatively I've got this massive build up now, and I've got so many ideas and so many things I want to write, and there's only so much time that I've got, but I've never felt so creatively excited.
And watching the films as well, has it been good just to kind of switch off and watch other people's art for a change?
That's it has that, and that's all fed in. And because the films that I've been watching haven't been your big franchise cookie cutter blockbusters, or I've been watching stuff that's original and quirky and new and fresh, that's all feeding in as well. So a ton of stuff I want to get on with. I'd love to write a horror movie. I've got to be quite honest with you. I haven't watched so many of them. I really, really want to write something in that genre.
When someone's writing, if you're trying to write something like a novel, how do you even begin? What's the process for you personally to write, to start either a novella or a novel? And I know that you write plays and stuff as well. Is it a different process for each thing?
Aye, it is. I mean, you get different ideas in different ways. It might be like, so for example, with Lazy Susan, it was the title. I just really loved that title, and I thought, what sort of character could come with that? What always really unlocks the creative process for me is voice. Once I know how the character talks, that's it. And all the best stuff that I've ever done has always been voice driven, whether it's the Incredible Adam Spark or the Moira monologues, or this new one that I'm doing. It's once I know how that character talks and how their words look on the page, that's me away, and I can't stop them talking. You know, it's just like you're racing to keep up with their thoughts. It's all voice driven for me. Arab Strap is all voice driven. Train Spotting is voice driven. A lot of the stuff that really stands out is because you connect with the voice.
And are these voices that you make up in your head, or are they loosely based on people you meet in real life?
Well, they're always loosely based on people that you meet in real life. I mean, every character that means something is usually taken from 3 or 4 different sources, different folk, and you sort of take bits for them all and sort of put them in a blender, and then this new character comes out. So you never have a character that's based specifically on one person that you've met in real life, because then you would be writing non-fiction. But you take for different folk. I mean, the character, the Moira, and the Moira monologues, for example, is based on all the women in my family, and you're really looking at, my sister, my gran, my auntie Brenda, my auntie Tracy, my auntie Kay, my cousin Kirsty. All of these folk combined produce somebody like Moira. So you definitely take for various different sources, as long as folk don't think you've taken everything for one person, and then that one person rocks up at your door and is like, "What the fuck?"
Wanting paid? You stole my character. I did actually see one of a podcast I was seeing the other day that was, or it was maybe a thing you did for the Guardian or something, and you were talking about advice for writers, and you were saying it's basically about getting the character. Once you've got the character right, so if you're wanting to start writing something, you've got to just find that character, and then everything should lead into that.
Well, I would agree. I mean, if people out there think about the books that they've read or the films that they've seen that have really meant something to them, it's always been because they've connected with the characters. I mean, I'll give you an example. My favourite film of all time ever is Jaws. Now, when you say that to people who haven't watched Jaws in a long time, the first thing they're thinking in their head is giant shark movie. Now, there's no getting away from that. It is a giant shark.
I was going to say,
right? But the more you watch Jaws, the less it becomes about the shark. And the more it becomes about the 3 guys on the boat that are fighting the shark. And the characterization in that film is so rich and detailed that they feel like real people. And the reason that I can go back to that film time and time and time again isn't because I'm waiting for the bit where the shark bursts out the water or the head rolls out the boat. It's the people, it's the interaction between those people. All good fiction is about people. That's what it is. It really is. And even special effects blockbusters, the ones that feel hollow and pointless are because they've got hollow and pointless characters, essentially.
And spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen Jaws, there was a couple of spoiler alerts there, but
who the fuck's not seen Jaws?
You know, seen Jaws, mate. You know, seen Jaws. So you're talking about earlier on about Tarantino. Is that? Would you say Tarantino's your favourite director, or?
I would. I love Tarantino. I mean, I'm 44, right? So when Reservoir Dogs came out, I was 18, and I saw it in its initial cinema release, and boof. You know, I discovered it around about the same time as I discovered Trainspotting, and I'd never seen a film in which the characters talked in that way. They talked like real people. You know, they didn't talk like gangsters. You know, they talked like guys. You know, they referenced movies and music and all this kind of. You look at the opening scene of Reservoir Dogs. There's no action in it. It's maybe a 7-minute long scene, and the guys are talking about the etiquette of tipping or talking about what Madonna's like a virgin means. As an opening scene for a film, you're like, what the, what's going on here? And you're enjoying spending time with these people, and that's why you invest in that world. I think everybody talks about Tarantino as a director, right? And he's a great director, but he's an even better writer. He's a brilliant writer. What he does with dialogue, what he does with characters, what he does with structure. If you look at something like Pulp Fiction, the way that film's structured, it's like a puzzle box, and it all comes together so perfectly at the end. He's a genius. He's an absolute genius, and he's still making great movies.
That's I was actually thinking about doing that adventure book novella. That would probably be maybe a good source of inspiration. But I suppose the adventure book's a different thing because you're not wanting to bring it all together as such, because you're wanting to have 3 alternative dimensions for the story.
Aye, it's tricky structuring this.
It sounds a nightmare, man. It sounds like a nightmare trying to write that.
It is difficult, because you've got all these different branching narratives that are all, intertwining and stuff like that. And I've only got a novella-sized book to fit it all in. And you realise that things could branch off infinitely. So there's only so many different directions I can take her. But it's definitely, I see when you, it's probably not a very sexy thing for people to hear, but writers out there will know exactly what I'm talking about. But structure is everything, because if you read a book or watch a film that is well structured, you don't even notice it. It just happens like a magic spell in front of you. But if you see a film or read a book that's badly structured, you do notice it because you're bored as shit, or you're confused, or you're just like, I can't find my way about this universe, and you lose faith in the writer. So structure actually really counts, but the structure should feel invisible. That's the thing. It's girded. For the writer, it's girded quite strongly, but for the reader, it should feel invisible and transparent. And this one has proven a particular headache, but that's all the more reason why you should do it.
Just like a good boss, if a good boss is doing their job, you shouldn't know they're there. Or
absolutely.
We're actually talking about this similarly on We Make Events last week, where it's like maybe a lot of the reason that people don't understand how many people are involved in the background of live events, because for the most part they do a great job. If they do a good job, then you won't notice they're even there.
100%. Yeah, it's exactly the same thing.
Well, what we're going to do just now, Alan, we're going to have a wee break for 2 seconds. Because I'm going to read out. You can actually decide who the winner of the Call That Radio mug is going to be.
Okay.
So we're going to. The question was, I think such and such should retrain as a such and such, and Alan will decide the best one. Also, this is your last chance. If you've got a question for Alan, then give him a wee shout. This is the time to do it. And see you back in a minute.
Brothers and sisters, may the peace that can only come from the one God be upon you. We are here to tell the people that we hear you. One God will not allow us and people of conscience to lose our morale.
Powered by our patrons.
Brothers and sisters.
That's you, Daniel. Are you before me?
You call that radio?
Hello, yes, this is Dog.
You call that radio?
Call that radio.
What about the people who hated on me?
Right, and then I see the disinfectant that knocks it out in a minute.
That's mad, isn't it?
Is this a Netflix thing?
It's actually a podcast.
What the fuck's a podcast?
You know, it's kind of like a radio show.
Oh, that radio.
Yeah.
And is there a way we can do something like that?
I couldn't help it.
By injection inside or
Yeah, I think so because I think just paint in general because I think like my poem is in my painting.
No, cut. Yes, it's You Call That Radio TV. We are live, and I just want to give a wee shout out to the new Patreons who have been supporting us. If you want to support the show, go to patreon.com/You Call That Radio. Up next, we're going to ask, if you've got any questions for Alan, this is the time to ask, and we'll ask him, and hopefully we'll be able to give you an answer. And your chance to win a limited edition You Call That Radio TV mug. You can't buy these, you can only win one. So let's, we'll be doing that in a second. Just want to give a wee shout out as well before we do that. A wee shout out to tomorrow's guests, Jim and Lefty. Jim was told he had a few months to live. He's 73-year-old, so he went and made his debut album, and it's an amazing album. That's going to be tomorrow night. And then on Thursday, we have YB Young Bridal, MC, Scottish MC, absolutely brilliant. And Friday, we've got Bonnie Prince Bob from Discontent. So it's a busy week. We're here most days on You Call That Radio. It's 7 o'clock on Facebook, we're on YouTube, and we're on Twitch. It's better on YouTube, so go to YouTube or go to Twitch. Twitch.tv/You Call That Radio or youtube.com/You Call That Radio. It looks better, it sounds better. Hit the subscribe button because Facebook's a load of piss sometimes. And Alan is back here. We're about to ask. I think such and such should retrain as such and such. So I'm just going to read out some of the answers, and you can let me know who. What's the question? The question is, sorry, in case you missed that, Petra, it's fill in the blanks. So this is based on the back of the Chancellor saying, I think artists should all retrain, despite the fact that there's absolutely no jobs and hardly any hope. What I think such and such should retrain as a such and such. So what we've got here is I think Ben Folds 5 should retrain as a shop assistant in Gap because they love folds at the Gap. So that's from Rona. David Robinson says, I think Nickelback should retrain as a cyborg, and I think Iggy Pop should retrain as a womble. Martin Raitt says, I think that Noel Gallagher should retrain as a musician. James Turpey says, I think that Liam Gallagher should retrain as a marriage counsellor. Laura Elleron said, I think that Fatboy Slim should retrain as a Weight Watchers coach. Bestie thinks that Dr. Alban should retrain as a GP. Carol Cox should retrain as an MC. Steph Daly says Sue Reed should retrain as a Punch and Judy man. Kenneth Mulligan says, I think that Morrissey should retrain as a professional fart smeller. And Algernon says the residents should retrain as opticians. Any there that you're standing out so far?
Well, the one that made me laugh the most was the very first one about Ben Folds 5.
Ben Folds 5. So Ben
Folds. I'm going to go with that. I love that.
Rona, you're in the lead, but there's still a couple other comments to read. I'll go through them. But let's take a question. The question for yourself is from Bruce. First question for you, Alan. Does Alan like Coen Brothers movies?
I like some of them. I didn't like all of them. I like Fargo. Although it did take me maybe 3 times to watch it before I realised how awesome it is. I didn't really get The Big Lebowski. I didn't really understand what all the fuss is about. It's all right. What else of theirs have I seen? See, the movies that are a bit. Some of the movies are a bit niche. See, when they're doing things like No Country for Old Men, when they manage to rein in their quirkiness a wee bit. That's when I like them best. When they're being
fantastic film.
when they're being less like the Coen brothers, that's when I like them most, basically.
And we've got a question from Susie, who says, question for Alan, what's on your shirt? It's a nice shirt. Also, yesterday I was told to log into some work you done for BBC Scotland for some inspiration. No done it yet, we'll do it tomorrow.
It's birds, I'll show you. I don't know if you can see it.
All right. Yeah.
Yep. It's some nice birds. I figured I would get dressed up. I'd put on my good shirt because I didn't get the chance very often. I'm sitting about the house all day, every day in my jammies. So I thought, why not put on a good shirt? So thanks very much for that. I really appreciate it.
Awesome shirt. Petra Jolly agrees. Awesome shirt.
Thank you.
Name mention of my shirt that Alison Rennie made. Zen Wren, mustn't grumble. You've won the shirt wars, Alan. The captain says, I think Boris Johnson should retrain as a role of Andrex. Well, probably toilet roll would be a bit more handy, especially if there's going to be another lockdown, which there isn't. Apparently there was going to be a circuit break. See all these terminology, man. Imagine you were like just transported to this place from January and all this social bubble, social distancing, circuit breaks. I mean, that's the new one, a circuit break. We're having a wee circuit break.
I get the necessity for it. I just didn't want them to shut the schools or the nurseries, because as soon as they start shutting the nurseries, that means my wains are home all day, every day again. I can't work, and that's probably the same for a lot of folk. I didn't really want them to shut the pubs again. So if that means restricting my personal liberty so the pubs and the schools can stay open, I'm prepared to do it.
We've got a question from Alan. Do you like, I can't pronounce that, sorry, Krzysztof Kiełowski films? Is that Krzysztof Kiełowski? Such as the Three Colours trilogy.
I've actually got a story about one of the films. One of my girlfriends, when I was at university, I was talking to her about Tarantino. Actually, I was like, you've got to go see Reservoir Dogs. It's amazing. It's going to blow your mind. And she's like, all right, I'll go with you. So I bought tickets for us to go, and we went to the McRoberts Centre in Stirling, because we're at Stirling University, and we sat down. And I looked round and I was like, this is nothing like the crowd that I was going to see this for the last time, which it was all young folk that were there. And this was a much more older crowd. I thought, well, maybe this older crowd have heard it. And then it comes up on the screen, Three Colours Red. And I'm like, fuck, we came a week early. We actually turned up to the wrong movie. And we didn't stay because I felt like such a dick. Did
it not make you marry a dick to leave and not see any film?
I was trying to impress this lassie, and I thought I'm so embarrassed to bring her to what she thinks is Reservoir Dogs and make her watch a totally different movie. I had to take her away to the pub to try and make it up to her and make her realise that I wasn't a total knob. So all I've seen of the Three Colours trilogy is the first 15 seconds of Three Colours Red, so I can't answer that, sorry.
We've got somebody's commented about reservoirdogs.co.uk.
Well, see, when they did that, I cut and pasted that link into another browser, so I'm going to watch that as soon as this is finished. Yep. After I've listened to Arab Strap single.
Yep. And we've got, I'm wearing my sparkly jacket just because I'm following Rishi Sunak's advice, doing a Scott Vec in hair and beauty, says Jim Monahan. And Petra's retraining as a self-employed spliff roller. Joe McCann says Tarantino's best film is Death Proof.
Oh, Joe, no, you can get the fuck. Sorry, right? I'm sure you're a lovely guy.
He is a lovely guy, but
I'm not having
he
that.
might be wrong. No,
he is wrong.
He's wrong.
He's way wrong. He couldn't be more wrong, because that is Tarantino's by far Tarantino's worst movie. So I don't know what he's up to there.
We've also got some comments on the other page saying Susan Docherty says that she's going to follow the Chancellor around with my saxophone and play all day behind him. It'll be fun and annoying as fuck for him.
Do you know what would be a great thing if artists did actually do that kind of protest? Well, you can't really do it because street protest is very difficult at the moment. But a spontaneous thing, like just artists following them about doing improv stuff. I seen
that happen round about Christmas time. The Polish were shouting at someone at a taxi rank, and one of the guys had one of the big massive, is it tuber? A tuber, like burr, 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 every time he walked away, and he turned around and he couldn't get away. It was comedy gold.
Well, do you know what I was hearing quite a lot for unionists after the referendum was, where was the great art that was produced by the referendum? And actually, do you know what the greatest art produced during the referendum was? Do you remember that guy that followed all the Labour MPs that had been...
Yeah, that's Matt Ligate. I know Matt well.
Well, do you know what?
The Death March.
Exactly. The Imperial Death March. As a situationist, absurdist piece of street theatre, that is second to none. Everybody saw that and they were like, fucking yes. Because that's exactly what was happening. Bow down to your Imperial masters. And the fact that he followed them around playing the Star Wars theme and shouting that, and they hadn't a clue how to deal with it. It's like, welcome to fucking Scotland. Love that guy. I don't know who he is, but tell him I love that guy.
Well, I think we've got, there's maybe we've just got a wee clip of this. It's just a wee 50-second clip just to show anyone who's not aware of it. But basically, to give a wee bit of background to this, this was when the Labour had been sort of, a whole bunch of Labour MPs appeared on a train.
Let's watch it.
From London.
The British songs, minders.
Is that what they're doing?
People of Glasgow, your Imperial masters have arrived!
Scotland would be better off staying in Britain, Wales will be better off with Scotland in, and England will be better off all together.
Our Imperial masters, you are welcome here!
Personally, I think we all as Scottish folk should get down on their knees and worship our imperial leaders, man.
Brothers and sisters,
That's you, Daniel. Are you before me?
Call that radio.
You call that radio.
Hello? Hello, yes, this is Dog.
And that was, yeah, everyone's enjoying it. I still watch this every now and then when I'm having a shite day. That's Matt Ligate, who runs a wee venue called The Space in the East End of Glasgow.
What's his second name?
Ligate.
Like Matt Ligate.
Yeah, Matt Ligate.
Love it. Love it.
We've got Matt runs the Space in the Carlton these days. Yep, cracking community art space it is indeed. So yeah, it was a great piece of work, and there was lots of good stuff. I mean, I think Stanley Odd as well. They did some great stuff as well during the referendum.
Aye, brilliant. Aye, there was loads of great stuff came out. The James Robertson poem, "The News Where You Are." I don't know if anybody has ever read that. That was, I think, published in 2014. Absolutely spot on. If you ever get it, it reminds me a wee bit of Tom Leonard's The 6 O'Clock News. I think quite consciously it brings back those kind of echoes. But go into Google James Robertson, "The News Where You Are." Fucking brilliant.
And Alan, just to wrap it up, we've got the winner. I think was Rona. She won it. Rona's won it. Rona won the mug. Congratulations, Rona. You are got a You Call That Radio TV mug. It is well deserved. Alan, strange times that you're in just now as a writer. Oh, it's fell down again. What strange times. How can people support what you're doing just now? Can they still buy your books? Can they come to your Zoom party and make a donation? What's the best way to support Alan Bisset in these strange times?
There's three ways basically. One is just a direct donation through PayPal. So that would be paypal.me/Alan Bisset Writer. The other would be buying something through my online shop. So if you go into my website, alanbisset.com, you'll see a shop tab. You can buy some of my books there. Or you can come along to my house party on Friday night and dance your tits off. And if you enjoy that, you can drop a wee thing into PayPal if you like. It's you know, it is difficult making a living just now. I'm not going to lie, but as I say, there's a lot of people got it a lot harder than me, so I'm not going to complain about that too much.
Well, I appreciate all the time you're having speaking to us today, Alan.
Mate, I could have went for 3 hours. I've loved this.
We'll get you on again, mate. We'll get you on again.
Let's do it.
Let's make it happen, man. Thank you
We're
very
gonna
much.
make it happen.
Oh, don't you're singing that too well, man. The copyright robots will take me down for that. Tomorrow night, guys, You Call That Radio will be back with Lefty and Jim. We will have who else we got? We've got Young Bridal on Thursday, and we've got Bonnie Prince Bob on Friday. You should call that radio. We're here Mace nights at 7 o'clock. Thank you very much, Alan. Who's Perty and Saturday. And all the very best.
Strange mood.
You Call That Radio.
Makes coherent sense.
How do we educate our children to take their place in the economies of the 21st century? How do we do that, given that we can't anticipate what the economy will look like at the end of next week? Every country on Earth is trying to figure out how do we educate our children so they have a sense of cultural identity and so that we can pass on the cultural genes of our communities while being part of the process of globalization. How do we square that circle?
You Call That Radio.
Makes coherent sense.